Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we continue to talk about the desperate need, and I'm using that term advisedly, for roads and bridges in this state. And then we've invited the candidates for the statewide offices, Treasurer, Auditor General, and Attorney General to be on this program to make the case for their election. Pennsylvania politics and government in depth and in detail, and guess what? It all starts right now.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, Bob Latham, he's the Executive Vice President of the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors, joins me. And look, as you know, after 16 years, I've tried to be neutral. On one subject, it's hard to be neutral anymore. We need to do something about the roads and bridges. The voters have said it over and over again. We now have the latest study, how much a year just to get the roads and bridges up to where they should be in the state?
Well, the last funding commission, the last study commission estimated $3.5 billion a year that we are not spending that we need to be, not just on roads and bridges, but transit, freight, public transit, freight, rail, aviation, now, the whole thing.
Let's get this out.
The total system.
Let's get this out.
Right. Republicans
and Democrat commissions, exactly. One under Rendell and one under current Governor Corbett, right? So this isn't a partisan deal.
No, it's not a partisan deal at all. And all you got to do is look at Jay Corman, Senator Corman introduced the funding commission's recommendations in the Senate. Mike Hanna, Dan Frankel, Democrat leaders introduced it in the House. So we've got bicameral, bipartisan support for the bill. Right. Auditor General Jack Wagner was just out last week with another press conference about the problem with aging bridges.
All right, now over the course of the last year or so, you and I have been chatting about this, and we talked about what was needed and why it should be done. But there's another way to put this, and that is the longer we put off doing something about this problem, you know where I'm heading with this.
I know where you're heading, and you're right. You're spot on as always. And the point is, there's a cost to doing nothing. For some reason, this is the issue that everybody wants. You know, poll after poll, group after group, no organized opposition, tons of organized support for this. It's the issue that everybody wants solved, but for some reason we can't seem to do it. There is a minority of elected officials that believe that there's some reason they can't ask people to pay for transportation. If we were responsible over the last 20 to 30 years, we would have increased or indexed the funding for this by maybe 1–2% a year, but we didn't. So now we've got this massive problem.
If we don't do it, what are the costs that we're paying? Go through some of those big items.
Well, right now, cost of congestion, let's say. If you're, it's costing you about $10 a week if you're going stop and go, even if you're getting 25 miles per gallon. The cost of the economy, we have a tremendous backlog of bad bridges here in Pennsylvania. I don't mean they're going to fall down, but they're bad and they need repair. And if they aren't repaired, they're going to have to weight restrict them. That means if you have a commercial operation, you business people in the state that have commercial operations that rely on trucks in and out of your facility, they're going to have to be rerouted. Emergency management system, sometimes fire trucks won't be able to go over those bridges, and the inventory is going to grow and grow and grow. Right. And then there's a tremendous impact to the employment issue.
I want to talk about that. We're going to run to a break. I want to talk about we're now up to 8.1% unemployment. This would produce jobs, good jobs, and it would also facilitate and make more efficient the transportation network with both roads and bridges. We'll be back with Bob Latham after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. I'm talking with Bob Latham. He's been on the program many times. We're chatting about the need for the state to do something about roads and bridges, the infrastructure in the state. Look, Bob, in addition, with the unemployment where it is, when I know stimulus is bills, you know, and what the president did is controversial, but I don't think there's any doubt that we need this work done just to repair what we now have. We're not talking about new roads and new bridges, and again, take it from there. In terms of the critical needs,
well, that's
plus employment.
That's correct. What we're looking at really is just maintaining the system that we have. If we properly fund comprehensive transportation, we can have a total system that will alleviate bottlenecks and produce the movement of goods and services. You mentioned unemployment. We're up over 8%. We're at the national average now. Construction sector leads unemployment. We're looking at PennDOT's program dropping by $500 million next year. We've surveyed our members. We're looking at a 30% decrease in employment in our industry, which we think relates to somewhere between 10,000 and 15,000 people that will be unemployed. Not only that, the companies are not investing in equipment, and that has a spillover to the economy. I mean, if you look at PennDOT's overall budget, 75% of what they do goes to the private sector, and those are private sector jobs. Companies paying taxes, people paying wage taxes. Conversely, when they're unemployed, that's going to impact the unemployment compensation fund and hurt the general fund.
And we're also talking about the fact that while we're investing in the infrastructure, which is critical to the economy and to the business community, just, you know, as you pointed out, not only to those of us who get stuck in traffic and wait longer and pay more for gasoline at the pumps, but it also benefits so many other areas of the economy as well.
Absolutely. I mean, look at just the Panama Canal issue now and the deepening of the Philadelphia port. We need to be able to be competitive for that business. One thing I'd like to point out is every once in a while you hear somebody saying that PennDOT's inefficient and they can solve all this with greater efficiency. This is a huge number. This is not going to be solved with efficiency. It's been created by not lack of investment. However, having said that, they are doing a lot of things now that they haven't done in the past. They're looking at better coordinated bridge inspection, right-of-way operations, that they're looking at regionalizing, collapsing their bureaucracy. They were recently cited by, recognized by the American transportation officials for their occupancy permits, and that's saving up to $3 million a year. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a good start.
All right, before I let you go, here's the fundamental point. 25% of the bridges in these studies have indicated are structurally in need of or in disrepair. Structurally.
Correct.
7,000 miles of roads in this state. We're not talking about new roads. So everybody out there, not new roads, just fixing the ones we have. That in itself is, as I use the term, desperately needed, and it's only getting worse. Even if we forgot everything else that you just mentioned.
I don't understand why we can't get this moving, Terry. It's a core function of government. It impacts every voter. It impacts every motorist. It impacts everybody, whether you drive or not. It will have an effect on the price of food that you buy. It will have an effect on whether you get emergency services to your door and getting around town. It's a quality of life issue.
All right, stay with us. The first of our interviews with the so-called row office candidates, Diana Irey Vaughan is here. She's a Washington County Commissioner. She's running for the post of State Treasurer. She'll be my guest after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, joining me is Diana Irey Vaughan. She's a Washington County Commissioner. That's outside Allegheny County. I guess I shouldn't put it that way. Maybe Allegheny County is outside Washington County.
I like that better.
She likes that better. She's been a county commissioner for 17 years. Well, look, Commissioner, let's start. You're running for the office of State Treasurer. We've had state treasurers on the program for the past 16 years, but talk a little bit about what the role of the state treasurer is.
The role of the state treasurer is really to be the fiscal watchdog of the Commonwealth's finances. As you know, there are two main functions, primary functions, and that is you're the manufacturer of the checks and you're the only statewide elected official to sit on both public pension boards. So you really have to be a leader in what's going on, and as you know, there's a huge issue that we have right now with the pensions in Pennsylvania. The unfunded liabilities recently got Pennsylvania's bond rating downgraded by Moody's.
Well, let's talk specifically about your agenda. I mean, if you're elected, what are the 3 or 4 things that you think the state treasurer can do, or if not do directly, influence the legislature, influence the governor? Because obviously as a statewide official, you're going to have a view on this, you have views on things, you'll be an important, and I won't even get into the fact that if you're the treasurer, auditor general, or attorney general, you usually run for something else after your career. We won't go there. But what are the 3 or 4 things you think the state treasurer ought to do? If you're elected, that you would do? Let me put it that way.
Well, the first thing is you have to try to offer solutions to the pension crisis that we have. And in just another 2 weeks, we're going to be releasing an actual plan of some of the ideas that I have. And let's talk about the pension crisis for a minute.
Okay.
Expand on that.
It's a big issue.
It is, and I've run a pension plan in Washington County as one of my duties, and I've done that for 17 years. And the first thing that I did when I became commissioner was to work on a new investment policy statement, one that was very conservative, that our financial advisor felt comfortable with, and we had some options. We set an asset allocation that was very diversified, and we've actually changed it a bit as the years go by.
Now, is that a 401k type plan for employees, or is it part of the...
It's a defined contribution plan that we have.
Defined contribution, not benefit plan?
Not defined benefit plan that the state has. It's different. And what we've done, after we put this together, we took a very disciplined approach to how we were going to continue on. And we made sure that what we were doing was within the investment policy statement, and that the asset allocations we monitored very closely, and we monitor them every 6 months to see if we need a rebalancing. So when we had high returns, as the Commonwealth did at one point as well, when we had very high returns, 118%, we left the money in the plan. We never touched it.
Yeah, the state, of course, for several years did not make any employer contribution at all, which, because the market was good and money was rolling in and the projections were. But we're looking at, $39 billion now, I hear $49 billion, that both pension systems. But can you get out of it by, most people say, well, let's say you change it for new employees, you do a 401k. How does that help the Commonwealth, which may have to float bonds in order to make its pension payment, which it now exceeds $1 billion a year out of each budget year, something like 1.6 or 7 billion. So how do you get out of that conundrum? You got all these people, you can't change a plan for current employees.
Well, you have to start by determining what got you into this mess. And some of the things I was saying, and you're right, Pennsylvania didn't put in the amount of money. They didn't fund the plan to the level that the actuary recommended, and that's why they're in the situation they're in. One of the reasons, but they also gave COLAs. Pennsylvania, when you compare Pennsylvania to other states, the studies have shown that we have a more generous benefit package than other states do. You have to look at everything that's been going on. We've been looking at some numbers for the to do a bond, to do a refinancing, but frankly, that's not my first choice of an idea. I think we're going to have to look at some other alternatives to doing that. Right now I'm gathering more information. There have been a few private businesses that have done voluntary buyouts, where they've done a bond issuance and they've done a voluntary buyout. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. Say you have $800,000 built up in your retirement plan, and you want to take a buyout right now, and you would be then in control of your money. You might get, say, $650,000 instead of, so you could better manage the long-term obligations that you're going to have. So we're looking at a couple different ideas like that too, because you have to decide whenever you're going for debt. Is it good debt or is it bad debt? Can we afford the debt? Is this the best idea?
Do I understand your point? You can't we're going to run to a break. You probably can't do anything for the current employees, but what you're saying is that for the future, there has to be a way to manage the debt that already existed in a way that makes sense.
Right. That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure. Now, before we run to break, I always say this. As a former professor at Millersville University, I'm in one of those pension plans, so I just need to be clear. Full disclosure on this program. We'll be back with a commissioner from Washington County who's running for state treasurer.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking to Diana Irey Vaughan. She's a Washington County Commissioner who's seeking the post of State Treasurer. Before we go on to another topic, you wanted to make a point about a contract is a contract is a contract.
Right.
I'm being redundant, but take it from there.
But that's right. The people who are already retired, your retirees with the Commonwealth, and the people who are already vested, you have an employment contract with them. You cannot change what you're doing with them without a willingness on their part to change it.
You
That's
just
an
made a
employment
couple
contract.
100,000 state employees in school districts.
Well,
happy.
I'm a commissioner in Washington County. I manage 952 employees, 6 unions, retirement system, and I know that. But that's the right way to approach things. But also,
can't take away something that somebody is counting on.
That they've already earned. That they've already earned.
Good way to put it. Excellent
they've earned
way
that.
to put it.
But just a couple more things. I would simplify the investments. I would work to try to convince others on the boards to simplify the investments. We're paying huge fees.
Oh, fees
in the fund. We're paying huge fees. We have high volatility and a much lower rate of return than we should for the volatility that we have. And if you compare Pennsylvania to other states, you'll see that, and we're going to do that. And you can just look at the New York Times did an article on April 1st, and it compared Pennsylvania to Georgia and said just that, as many other articles have. But the pension fund is definitely the #1 issue. The second issue is debt. You know, whether we're talking about the federal government, the state government, or our own households, we know that there's good debt and there's bad debt. And, you know, you're not going to incur more debt if you can't afford it, because you know what's going to happen. Look what's happened with people losing their homes, you know, throughout this nation, and credit card debt. And when you look at what consumers have been doing recently, you know, they've been doing away with a lot of credit cards. They've been paying down their debt, and they've been more conservative in their spending.
So are you saying that you would encourage the legislature that, after all, is this primarily, is your concern here about the state budget, the size of the state budget, reducing the state budget, or are you talking about the estimated 3 to 4, whatever the exact number is, $4 billion in debt we created from the borrowing done over the last, 8, 12 years? I'm
talking about that. So we have to be careful that we're not creating more debt that doesn't make sense. I'll give you an example. The last borrowing for the RCAP program, we funded the
That's the Community Economic Development Program that did a lot of convention centers and
redevelopment capital assistance program.
Yeah, all sorts of other investments in communities, which is very popular, by the way, with lawmakers, but go ahead.
But we did, we funded the Arlen Specter Library, the John P. Murtha Policy Center. I can tell you, because we've been the administrators of a program like that in Washington County, some of the money has been very, very wasteful. There was a program that was approved that I spoke out against in Washington County, where one employer got $1.76 million in moving expenses to move from one development in Washington County to another development in Washington County. No job creation tied to the money that's been spent, no wage threshold tied to anything. So we really need to take a look at what we're doing.
Well, the spending on things like RCAP have, much reduced. It was a huge program that Governor Rendell really put his major thrust in, but Republicans and Democrats bought into that whole thing because everybody wanted, it's a little understandable. You want to, counties have needs, as you know, and
absolutely,
and sometimes some were good, as you point out, and sometimes didn't generate the jobs. But you're talking then, so we're clear, you're talking about the debt that was created by that, how we pay that debt down. Is that right?
I'm talking about looking at future requests for debt and what makes sense for the Commonwealth.
I get it.
I'm looking at that. And I can tell you some of those programs are terrific. And in Washington County, we're third in the nation in job growth. We had an opportunity to receive state and federal monies that we built industrial parks, and we've had an enormous amount of success in Washington County because of investments like that. But not all of them have made sense. So we really need to look at everything that's in these borrowing requests.
One of the things, I don't know if there's something else that you want to talk about that you want to do, but one of the what we have seen more lately, and we've seen it with Jack Wagner, the Auditor General. By the way, I'm not being partisan about this. I think done a terrific job.
I agree with you, and he's been a leader on a number of issues.
And Republicans and Democrats say, I had a Republican on last week, major player who praised Jack Wagner for the job that he's done. But he also has gone beyond the scope of his office to be, like
a leader. Yeah,
to talk about that role that you think, if you were elected, that you would play, to be a lead, a cheerleader, an advocate. In general, how do you view the role of the office?
Well, I think the state treasurer has to be a leader as well as Jack Wagner has shown, and you have to go outside of the actual responsibilities that you have day to day. And you have to look at things when the legislature or the governor are proposing things that are going to impact the budget. You need to see what impact that's going to have in the long term. You need to be somebody who looks long term with a plan and a vision for how to get Pennsylvania to be a more stable, secure financial position. And so you're going to have to provide information for all sorts of subjects, including, the selling of the state stores and things like that. And when the proposal was out there about privatizing some of the highways, that was out there under the last governor. You have to provide information on that. And I think you need to be providing information for families, that are participating in the 529 college savings program and some that are not, because, I've got one daughter still in college, 2 kids out, and I can tell you that there are so many children that are signing for massive amounts of debt. They have no idea what that means. They're basically buying a home, when they're going into debt for some of these college programs, and we need to be trying to allow people the opportunity for a process to consider the implications of all the debt.
Well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. As I've said before, we're going to bring on all the candidates, which we are likely to do and hopefully will do. Hey, thanks for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.